Okay, so the under-20 World Cup roster for the U.S. men's national team has been released. Marko Mitrovic is the head coach. Some of you guys might remember him from the Olympics last year. Not last, yeah, 2024, last year. It's an interesting roster. It's maybe devoid of a lot of high ceiling talent, but there is a lot of experience, particularly MLS experience here. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this roster, guys, what our expectations are, how far this team could go, the players that are on it, maybe some guys that are missing for one reason or another. Because Tack and I are going to cover this under 20 World Cup the same way we do the senior team. So live watch alongs at Tactical Manager and then post games here at 11 Yanks. Happy Friday. Hope you guys are looking forward to a good weekend. Doing well, Christopher. Sup, Pete? Hope you're well, brother. I'm good. I'm doing all right. Up early here in Los Angeles, although 9 isn't really not that early, but I got up early to work on this roster stream and wait for the release. How are you guys doing? Two things. Hit the like button if you haven't already, and double check for me. With these streams, we've been getting a lot of people watching on this second channel, but a lot of you maybe are not subscribed. And that's because some people might think this is still the old channel. You watch a video and you're like, okay, this is Pete. This is the second channel. So if you haven't already, just double check that you are subscribed. And if you're not subscribed, just hit subscribe. It helps with like sponsors and stuff if we can get those subscriber numbers up. Vivian, hello, Vivian. Super sticker with a $4. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Gonzalez, hello. Jorge Mora says, where can we watch the Under-20 World Cup? That is a great question. Let's begin. Pete, is your old channel gone forever? I don't believe it's gone forever, Ice. It's quite the name. I don't believe it's gone forever. We're still working on it, but for the foreseeable future, we will be here on 11 Yanks Soccer. So this is the schedule, guys. We'll get into the roster in just a second. But this is the schedule. We are in a group with New Caledonia, France, and South Africa, right? So we open on September 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time against New Caledonia. All the games are in Chile, who are the hosts. And then on October 2nd, we face France. That'll be a very interesting game. And then October 5th, we play South Africa. So all pretty good times for U.S. viewers here. I think it's going to be on Fox Soccer. That's because they have the rights to all the World Cup FIFA stuff. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be on Fox Soccer, but I could be wrong. Let me double check here. Can I watch U20 World Cup? And it'll be on FIFA.com. FIFA Plus. In the United States, it will be available on Fox Sports. Yes, I was correct. It'll also have options on Telemundo. So Fox Sports, Telemundo, and FIFA Plus. Spencer says I should be working on my Stratcom paper, but here I am, LOL. Do players have to be released from their clubs? No, they do not, Lotion. They do not have to be released from their clubs. It's the Under-20 World Cup, so it is not a requirement to release players. That's probably why we didn't see Noah Kai Banks here. Augsburg was probably very reluctant to release, especially now that he's also with the senior team, or was at least in the last camp. My guess is Augsburg wouldn't release him, which is a shame because I think this would have been a really great coming out tournament for Noah Kai Banks. But this happens every time with the Under-20 World Cup, and it's not just us. There are a lot of other teams that will also have players, missing because their clubs refuse to release them. So we're going to get into the roster breakdown in just a minute, guys. But before we do, we have a quick word from our sponsor, who in this case is the 11 Yanks Patreon. Patreon is not only a great way to support the channel, it's filled with elite content I can't put out on YouTube. The top 10 that you see on YouTube every week, that's available on the Patreon with the actual clips from the game instead of just a sketched screenshot. After every USMNT game, I put a 20-minute breakdown of the game with my commentary and tactical insights, usually things I didn't always catch the first time around in the post-game stream. With the Under-17 and Under-20 World Cups coming up, I plan to do the same for these two tournaments just like I did last time. There's also extra content like young player scouting reports or all-touch comps from certain players of interest. Thanks to everybody who is already supporting the channel via Patreon. It really helps to keep me going and continuing to do what I do. All right, so link to the Patreon is in the description box below if you guys want to check that out, especially as we go into the under-20 and under-17 World Cups. Every weekend, the top 10. I mean, everything I said right there. I don't need to hit it again. So check that out if you are interested. It is a great way to support the channel, especially at a time right now where I am struggling to get my original channel back. Let's talk about the roster. And we start with goalkeepers, which is about what we expected. Diego Cochin may be one of the most interesting players in the roster. Duran Fure from San Diego FC, and Adam Beaudry from the Colorado Rapids. So both of them are backups at their clubs. All of these guys are backups at their clubs. In Diego Cochin's case, he's the third choice goalkeeper at Barcelona. Diego Cochin is the starter, right? Or he's the assumed starter for this team. We'll see what Marko Mitrovic does. You never know what he's going to do. This is a guy who brought Duncan Maguire over Diego Luna, right? Georgi Mihailovic over Diego Luna to the Olympics. So you don't know what he's going to do, but we would assume that Diego Cochin is the de facto starter for the U20s. And for a lot of you, maybe who haven't really had a chance to watch him that much, myself included, because he plays mostly with the academy team in the third division, although he is on the bench at times for Barcelona, right? But being on the bench, he's not the number 2, he's the number 3, right? So we'll see how he does. I mean, he is the heir apparent to the goalkeeping position for the senior team. But let's see what happens now at an under-20 World Cup where there's pressure. We'll get a close-up look at him, most likely, and see how he does in this under-20 World Cup, right? For those of you who don't know him, this kid is very good with his feet. He's very highly rated by those at Barcelona, but obviously 19 years old, which is very, very young for a goalkeeper, especially to be playing anywhere near the first team at Barcelona. So we'll get a chance to see what Diego Cochin looks like. The number 2 is probably Adam Beaudry, but again, we'll have to wait and see on some of this stuff. Fullbacks now, and you have Frankie Westfield, Luca Bombino, Nolan Norris, and Reed Baker-Whiting. So within this fullback pool, there is a lot of MLS experience. Almost all of these guys, except for Nolan Norris, are pretty much starters for their clubs, or at least intermittent starters for their clubs in MLS. Luca Bombino is an interesting one because this guy was in the LAFC academy, wasn't seeing any minutes, went to San Diego, became a starter, and is like the starting left back for the best team in MLS right now, or the best team in the West, at least. So it's very interesting that they released him because they will have playoffs, right? So it's interesting that they released Luca Bombino, but I'm glad that they did. Kudos to the people at San Diego for releasing their players. Frankie Westfield has been pretty much an intermittent starter for the Union as well at 19 years old. He was the one who essentially ousted Nathan Harriel from the starting position over in Philadelphia. Nolan Norris is a left back and the captain, or has been the captain for this team, which I don't love personally because I think Luca Bombino is a better player, but I think Nolan Norris will start at left back because he is the captain. I'm not as high on Nolan Norris as some people are, but we'll see what Marko Mitrovic does. And then you have Reed Baker-Whiting over at Seattle, who actually just recently got an assist for them, and has a lot of MLS experience, not only this season, but last season as well. So I don't really have a problem with this fullback pool. Peyton Miller is also on this roster. He's played as a left back for New England Revolution mostly, but he's on this roster as a winger. So that'll be interesting to see. He's played for the under-20s mostly as a winger. Fumar says we don't have any Euro fullbacks. Not really in this age group. Aiden Harangi is one that maybe could have been released. He's also playing for San Diego after coming from Germany. But I guess they felt Frankie Westfield and Reed Baker-Whiting were ahead of him, which is probably fair. And maybe there was an element too if they don't want to take too many players from San Diego. San Diego also released Pedro Soma. So we'll have to see how this goes. But in terms of these fullbacks, I don't think any of these 4 have incredible ceilings. But they do have a lot of experience in MLS, which, can help when you're playing in a youth tournament, right? So that's the fullbacks. And really, we only brought 3 center backs, right? Josh Winder from Benfica, Ethan Kohler, who's on loan to SC Vieri from Werder Bremen, and Noah Cobb. Noah Kai Banks, obviously not here. Our best, center back at this age group. Very likely he was not released by Augsburg. So that's a disappointment in some ways, but hopefully it means he can continue to get minutes with the first team at Augsburg and hopefully get called up again in October for Poch's senior team roster. Ignore the Pete center backs then. This was a framework that I borrowed from another, thing, and I just forgot to edit this part. No Grayson DeTony is there. Matai Akimboni is another one that's not there. I'm hearing that he was injured, and that's why he didn't make this team. Noah Cobb has a ton of MLS experience. He was an intermittent starter for Atlanta for a while, and then that was last season. This season, not as much, but he went out on loan to the Colorado Rapids, and he's mostly been starting for them as well. So in terms of pro experience, he has a ton. Josh Winder, we've sort of followed for a while. Benfica is a very tough team to break into. He mostly plays for their second team. And then Ethan Kohler does play for SC Vieri. I'm a little concerned about this center back group because it's not only thin, we only have 3 center backs, but it's hard to say at this age group who's got a high ceiling and who doesn't, right? They're still very young for center backs. Yeah, Mattia Kimbani is at Bournemouth. I thought he would be on this roster. He's apparently not. It seems like he picked up an injury. Um, so we'll see how these guys do. My guess is Winder and Cobb will be the de facto starters, but we'll see how this goes. It's again, we're starting against New Caledonia, who we should have no problems against, and then it's France and South Africa that might be the not might be will be the tougher games. Yeah, Spencer, he did make the bench a couple of times, but he's not going to play for Benfica's senior team. Rosella says Winder and Cobb will be fine. They have a pretty good partnership. The thing about this U20 group, to their credit, even though I don't think they have a ton of like high level talent in this team or high ceiling talent, I should say, they have played together quite well under Marko Mitrovic. They recently, I think, destroyed Morocco 4-1, for example. And so we'll just kind of have to see how it looks at a World Cup. Because it's one thing to do it in friendlies. Friendlies can be very deceiving. Doing it at a World Cup, that's a different level, right? So we'll kind of have to wait and see what happens with this group. I don't love this center back group. Banks and Akimboni would have made it better for me, but it is what it is at this point, and it'll be a good test to see where all of these guys, are at. I mean, Winder played in the last under-20 World Cup. So in terms of under-20 World Cup experience, he has that, right? Now we go into the midfielders here, and it's an interesting one. You have Ben Kremaski, Nico Shakiris, Matthew Corcoran, Pedro Soma, Taha Habrun, and Brooklyn Reigns. So again, in this age group, a lot of MLS experience. Ben Kremaski played in the last World Cup. So did Nico Shakiris. Shakiris has been on the outs for San Jose. Bruce Arena does not seem to rate him much over there. Matthew Corcoran's an interesting one. He was brought in by Nashville originally in the Dallas Academy. They did loan him out for most of this season to Birmingham, Alabama. And they just recalled him from his loan. So it'll be interesting to see. He's more of a 6 type of player. Shakiris is more of a 10/8, similar to Ben Kremaski. Then you have Pedro Soma, who a lot of you remember from the under-17 World Cup. Yes, he was at La Maja. He's now with San Diego. He's mostly been a sub for them and getting minutes off the bench. Taha Habrun's an interesting one. He's been actually starting recently for the Columbus Crew, and is more of a 10 as well. Brooklyn Reigns for Houston Dynamo is the 8. It seems like you have guys that can play both 8 and 10, and then guys who can play both 8 and 6. Like Pedro Soma can play the 6. He can also play the 8. Taha Brun can play the 10, more likely. Ben Kremaski can play 8, play 10. Same with Shakiris. So I think this midfield group is fine. In terms of players that are missing here, there really isn't anybody that you could point to and say, why wasn't this guy there? You look around, maybe it, excuse me, maybe a guy like Jonathan Shore for NYCFC is a guy who could perhaps have been there, but he is still very, very young. I don't know if he's U17 eligible. Maybe you could argue, should Kevin Sullivan be with this group? I don't think so. Personally, I think some of these 10s have been more effective in MLS. I think Kevin Sullivan should stay with the U17s for now. But when you look around MLS and even when you look around Europe, I don't see a ton of guys from the midfield in this age group that you go like, oh, why weren't they here? If you guys can think of anybody, let me know. But I don't really see anybody myself. So as far as midfielders we could have brought, I think this is about right. How will they look at a World Cup? That's the big question, right? A lot of these guys have MLS experience, um, but there's not really none of them that you look at, you're like, oh my God, this is an incredible high ceiling player. We see that more with the under 17s. Yeah, a couple people are asking, you're talking about Adrian Simon Gill at Barcelona. He's like seriously dropped off in the last couple of years from what people thought he was going to be. But this is the midfield group. It's not a terrible group. I think it's pretty solid. But again, we'll just have to see because like looking good in MLS or even looking okay. No, none of these guys have looked good in MLS, right? Like none of them have tore up MLS. Ben Kramaski just went to Parma, and they're very eager to let him go to this World Cup. I don't know how much he's actually going to play at Parma. So this is a big test. This is a big test for this under 20 midfield group. Now we get into the wide forwards. You have Peyton Miller, Cole Campbell, and Luke Brennan over Atlanta United. Now, obviously, Cole Campbell is the player of interest here. He hasn't gotten a ton of minutes with Dortmund. There was rumors that he was maybe going to go out on loan to Stuttgart in the summer. That ended up not happening. He said he wanted to stay and fight for his place at Dortmund, and they did let him go, which tells you how they feel about him, right? Probably not a lot of minutes available for him right now. If he can go and tear up this World Cup, which remains to be seen, maybe he could get a loan, in January and push for a World Cup spot if he's playing in the Bundesliga or something, because we are quite thin on the wing with the senior team. Um, then there's Peyton Miller, who mostly has played as a left back for New England Revolution. Peyton Miller is one of the guys that's eligible for the next under 20 World Cup as well, which is very interesting. I was excited when Peyton Miller broke through. He broke through at 16 years old with the New England Revolution. He hasn't made a ton of progress since then. He's not really a winger, in my opinion, although with the Revs youth teams, he was more of a winger. They're going to play him as a winger, which should tell you a lot about our winger depth. Then you have Luke Brennan at Atlanta United, mostly a bench player, comes off the bench occasionally, hasn't really done that much for being a 20-year-old in MLS. I think Miller and Campbell should probably be the starters on the wing. But again, when you look at the around here, there's nobody that you're like, oh my God, that's a high ceiling player. In terms of players that, could have been here, to be honest, is Luke Brennan really better than Mathis Albert at this point? Albert's playing pretty much at a U20 level with Dortmund's youth teams. He plays for their under 19s and he absolutely destroying it. So I do wonder, should maybe Mathis Albert have played both of these tournaments, right? Maybe he can play, he's going to be with the U17s. He can also play under 20. For whatever reason, we decided not to bring him. I don't know if Dortmund said he can only play one. Usually with their youth teams, they let players go because honestly, you're going to get more experience playing in the under 20 World Cup than you are going to be playing for the under 19s. But maybe Marko Mitrovic feels like he's not ready. I don't know. Like this guy just ripped apart Juve's under 19 teams. I think he's ready for the U20 level. And I think actually, as youth players go, he's our highest ceiling youth player, Mathis Albert. I think he's already better than Kevin Sullivan. He just doesn't get as much hype because he doesn't play in MLS, and we all know how that works. But Kevin Sullivan is a very high ceiling talent too. He needs to start performing in MLS at some point. But he's 15, so let's give the kid time. Personally, I think we would have been better served with Mathis Albert as the third winger instead of Luke Brennan. That's just my opinion. Watch Luke Brennan now go tear it up at the under 20 level. Other than that, you look around, there's really not a lot of wingers that you're like, this could be the guy that should be here. It's just at the under 20 level. We don't have a lot of high ceiling players right now. We start to go down to the under 17 level. That's where you start to see more high ceiling players. Um, but let's keep going. Let's push to the forwards. Now, these forwards, Xavier Gozo and Marcus Zambrano. Now, Gozo has actually been playing wide for Real Salt Lake. He had a beautiful bicycle kick goal this week, which is going to probably make the top 10 on the weekend. Figueroa is a guy missing from here. Marcus Zambrano, I don't understand what he's doing on this team. Marcus Zambrano is playing for RSL's youth team. Okay, so he's playing in MLS Next Pro, and he's not even tearing it up there. He has like 4 goals there. at age 20. Dude, Kevin Sullivan looks better for, Philly's second team than Marcus Zambrano does. It's just, I don't think Zambrano earned his spot on this team. I really don't. You know who else could have been on this team, which I think is already a better player than Marcus Zambrano, is Julian Hall with the New York Red Bulls. He's playing with the first team, has a couple of goals, has a couple of assists. He's going to be with the U17s. I feel like he's a guy who probably is better uh, than Marcos Zambrano now. But the Red Bulls are right on the edge of that playoff line. And so while they probably will release him for the under 17 World Cup, um, maybe there's a sense of like, we'd rather have him with the under 17s, not with the under 20s. My question is, who's going to be the nine? Like Xavier Gozo plays as a winger for RSL. And I just don't think Marcos Zambrano, who is an MLS Next Pro player, is going to cut it at an under 20 World Cup. So I'm a little bit concerned at the nine for this under 20 World Cup team. But credit to Marko Mitrovic. So far, he has this team playing quite well together. Even though there's not a lot of high ceiling talent, they seem to have a good camaraderie about them, and that is refreshing and good to see. So that is the under 20 World Cup roster. Like I said, guys, Tack and I will cover it. We'll do live watch alongs and we'll do the post game breakdowns. And then obviously on Patreon, the next day we'll have the game. I'll have the game as well. So go check out the Patreon. It's going to be fun. The under 17 World Cup is right after that. So we're going to cover that one as well the same way. Now, the under 17 World Cup for us is more exciting just in terms of available players. Like, you got Mathis Albert, you got Kevin Sullivan, you got Julian Hall, you got Maxi Carrizo, even some of the center backs at under 17 level, like Ian James for Sporting KC, or, Christopher Cups for the Chicago Fire. There are some very, very interesting, high ceiling prospects with our U17s. Even Jonathan Shore from NYCFC is another one that, I think should be in that under 17 World Cup roster. The problem with the under 17s is there's been some issues recently where they haven't played particularly well together. They most recently lost 8-2 to the Netherlands. Now, that could be a blip. I don't want to, at under 17 level, shit can happen. So I don't want to analyze that too much, but we'll see what that under 17 World Cup roster looks like. There's a lot more talent on there. Um, so more interesting from a long-term perspective. The under 20s, maybe not as much high ceiling talent, but definitely a lot of experience, MLS experience, particularly. And they do, at least so far in the friendlies that they've played quite well together. So we'll see what they look like. New Caledonia first. And for everybody who missed the beginning, we play New Caledonia, we play France, and we play whatchamacallit? New Caledonia, France, and South Africa. Zara here says, should have brought Darren Yappy. I don't think Darren Yappy is under 20 eligible anymore. I think he turns 21 this year. Yeah, he turns 21 this year. Otherwise, Darren Yappy, yeah, in November, he turns 21. So he was not eligible. But he's been scoring goals in MLS and doing reasonably well. So you think at an under 20 level, he would be there if he was eligible. Unfortunately, he is not eligible. The downside of being born late in the year. He turns 21 this year. So yeah, that is the under 20 World Cup roster. I don't want to be too much of a downer. I think it's more of a wait and see with this team. If you think about how many of these guys could make the senior team one day as A-team players, not like Gold Cup call-ups or, yeah, you just don't know for sure. Could Josh Winder? Perhaps. Could Peyton Miller? Perhaps. I don't really see a lot with Peyton Miller myself. Diego Cochin likely to make the raw, Luca Bombino, maybe Xavier Gozo is another one. But you certainly don't see a lot of guys here that are like, oh, that guy's going to be an elite player one day. At least I don't. And people may have differing opinions than me, and that's okay. But that's the under 20 World Cup roster, guys. Hit that like button before you leave. Make sure you're subscribed. This is not the 11 Yanks channel. This is 11 Yanks Soccer. So you might just be watching it and realize, oh, you haven't actually subscribed. Double check that and make sure you're subscribed. And if you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button so we can at least get these numbers up while we're waiting for the original channel to be returned. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for hanging. I know this is not a super long stream, but it's the under 20 World Cup. If Gio and Malik Tillman both start for their clubs on Sunday, I'm going to try to do a live watch along for that. if Tillman starts for Leverkusen and Gio starts for Gladbach because they were playing each other. I don't know if Tillman's going to start after his performance in midweek though. And the guy who came on for him looked quite good. So it's possible that Tillman won't start. But if Tillman and Gio both start, I might do a live watch along for that because that would be cool to watch our two tens going head to head in the Bundesliga. All right, guys. Thanks for everything. Check out the Patreon if you want. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. And I will see you on Sunday, at very least for the top 10. I'll see you there. Talk soon.